Hello, sisters. Okay, the discussion strikes back. Are we all alien themed today because of my shirt? All right. I'm honestly having like a super horrible day, like a very, very bad day. Like I thought I might come on the stream and start crying. But then honestly I was like, that's okay. If I start crying, like I can just delete the stream. uh oh shit, did I not turn off my mic? Whatever. Okay. So hello Hannah. Welcome to the sister space. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Lisa. Okay, oh, thanks, guys, for sending me hugs. Honestly, I had like a meltdown with my mother. Like, I knew I shouldn't call her, but I called her, and then it was like, very bad. Okay. Um, Maple says a long time ago, I read a study that said female couples make the best parents statistically. I have also read this study. Female couples are the couples with the lowest rates of abuse towards children and towards each other. Maple OMG, Benji, I did the same thing with my mom last month. My condolences, Maple. Also, I cannot believe like I felt like physically stressed out when I came here. Like I was like kind of shaking and like my breathing was weird and stuff. But I thought like reading would like force me to like breathe and like sit still and stuff. So I think it was good. But the best way to get along with your mom is to not talk to her pro advice. Thank you, possible person. I know that, but once in a while I'm like get self destructive. And I'm like, maybe having a mom who likes me would be nice, and then it's not great. Okay. Okay. So the essay. Hannah was saying she doesn't know much about this topic. Hannah, I also don't know anything about this topic. Like I have some oh, thank you, Frau. I have like some awareness of this because like, I know some lesbian moms, but it's not like they sat me down and were like, this is the process through which we planned our family. Actually, okay, there's a few things I want to mention first. Antinatalists for the win. Yes, Michelle, I'm very antinatalist, but I also think that if lesbians have children, it's like they should be supported because they already like, Okay. So a few things I want to mention off the top. At one point in the essay, you can tell by the pronouns the author uses that she assumes any therapist that a lesbian family has will also be a woman. I totally support this. I'm a separatist, obviously. Okay. Um, Also, at one point in the essay, she was like, it's highly improbable that both women can be mothers. Literally, one of the lesbians I know who has 3 kids, she and her wife, now ex-wife, she and her wife were pregnant and had their babies at the same time. Like the kids were born like a month apart from each other or something. And so she said that was like really nuts and like she doesn't advise that. But just when she mentioned that, it made me think of my friend. Um Also, my book is like I knew the spine was broken here, but like literally the pages were falling out. That's why at some point I kept messing with my hands because I was like, how do I hold this book to stop ripping the pages out of the book? Um Yeah, Apostle Person says, I honestly didn't find this essay mind blowing, but it's probably a good primer if you're unfamiliar with the topic. Yeah, it was very, very interesting. Michelle says it was probably groundbreaking when it was written. Yeah, I think so too. So this is published in 1987. So Hello, a Bird Killed Me. Presumably, this was written in like yeah, all of us have bad mom relationships, right? We should do a stream about like, as a radical feminist, what are your thoughts on your relationship with your mother? Because I have like so many complicated feelings on it. So, okay, so let's go through the essay. Um, so I liked how female identified the writer was. To me, the essay was very, I mean, it's kind of it's kind of hard not to be female identified when talking about lesbians, but as we've learned in this book, it's very, very easy to be super phallocentric when you talk about lesbians. So kudos to this author for not doing that shit. Um, Lisa says, yes, damn. Growing up, I was so jealous and mystified by girls who had good relationships with their moms. Yeah. Oh, you too, Frau. Um, yeah. Hannah says, I have a great relationship with my mom, but the relationship got better when my dad stopped living at our house. I think that's something too. It's like, it's not just your relationship with your mom. Like, I think a big factor in my relationship with both my parents was like their relationship with each other when I was a small child and what I got out of that and how I like internalized that. And so, like, I think in a lot of ways, the way I treated my parents was like a mirror of how the other parent treated them. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, this is not the point of this stream. Okay. I want to try and stay on focus. Um, I'm happy for you, Kaz. Okay. Like I have some specific Mabel, I'm glad at least one of us has a good mom. Yeah. I have some like very specific memories from when I was a child, like shaming my mom over her body or something, like because she was like fat or something. And now I have like the exact same fucking body shape as her. And like I don't know, whatever. Okay, let's not get into it. I can spend hours talking about my relationship with my mother. Okay. So, a couple interesting things. The one of the first things that I found so interesting, which obvious it seems obvious when I read it, I was like, oh, of course, was that lesbians will enter therapy specifically for their family issues and not tell the therapist that they're lesbians. It makes a lot of sense, but also imagine how difficult that is. It reminds me, as everything does, about detransition, because so many detransitioners I know, it's so fucking hard to get a therapist or a counselor who basically is not dumb. I mean, I don't want to like go into it, but basically they have to not be stupid, okay? Who can actually help a detransitioner, right? Or a desister or re-identified woman, whatever you call them. Autonomous woman, whatever. Um, so what often the women I know, what they end up doing is they get a therapist who specializes in whatever their disorders are or whatever. And then they will go to the therapist and they will talk about everything except gender identity. Like they will talk about their body issues, they'll talk about their like interpersonal stuff, like their anxiety around gender roles and stuff, but they will never bring up gender identity. And if the therapist brings it up, they will steer the conversation away from that. So it's like they're going to therapy because of their dysphoria and their transition, and the only thing they're not discussing in the sessions is their actual transition and what would be pathologized as dysphoria because they try and discuss it in like snippets instead of like one big thing. Um, and so to me, it was so interesting because the lesbians are in this lesbian families are in the same position that they're trying to get therapy for a specific issue, and that's the issue they won't mention to the therapist. Which obviously it's like trying to jump hurdles with your like leg tied behind your back. Like it's a bad thing. Um, Michelle says, Benji, doesn't that make sense given the status of detrans and of lesbians in society? Yes, it does. Okay. Mabel says, geez, I feel called out. That's exactly what I did with my last therapist. Everything except the dysphoria. Well, I'm glad you got that therapist. Okay. Right. Also, very, very interesting to me because, again, this is a product of its era, right? Tossstone says, I could not come out to my mother. My father was fine about me being a lesbian. So, Tossstones, you don't need to tell me anything about your life, but you literally just drove your son to school. Do you have like a wife or a partner or something? And do your kids or your kid, I don't know how many you have like a positive relationship with their grandparents based on what you've just told me? Um, Also, Tossstones, because you're like the lesbian mother who's here, I'm going to interrogate you. Did you ever make use of or feel the need for lesbian support groups, lesbian parenting groups, things like this? Um, because the lesbian moms that I know, when they be- became lesbian moms, and most of them became lesbian moms like in the early 2000s. Oh, you did 2 Sons on by yourself. Wow. Um, when they became moms in the early 2000s, there was like lesbian parenting support groups, but they were like very, very isolated. Like when they became mothers, it's like their whole world like shrunk into just like what's happening in the household, and they were like very I mean, at least from my observation, very disconnected from the outside world. Um, okay. Possible person says mine is explicitly affirmative with regards to transition. I rarely talk to her. I wouldn't see her at all, but the situation is complicated. Yeah, I know. Especially possible person. Aren't you in Germany? No, you're American. I don't know. Um, oh, Tossstone. So your sons do have a relationship with their grandparents. That's good. Um, okay. Oh, something else I found so interesting because in the contemporary LGBT, or even just in the contemporary. Oh, you're in. No, Michelle. No, Frau. I know that you're in England, but you're German or used to live in Germany or something. It's tossed because who? No, I know Toss Stones is in New Zealand. I know Maple and Mad Adam are American. Julia's American. For some reason, I keep thinking Possible Person is European somewhere. No, Julia, you're not American because your time zone is fucked. I don't remember where you are. But yeah, anyway. So in the contemporary, to yeah, I'm sorry, Julia, because I remember you being one time at like when I was like in the afternoon, you were like it's 3 in the morning. So clearly you're like on the other side of the world. You are still an American. Okay, my bad. Didn't mean to be Americophobic towards you or something. Um, yeah, so she refers to like the mother and the co-parent. And I was like, at first I was kind of confused because um I wasn't exact because there are many co-parenting like situations, right? Um, so at first I was kind of confused what she meant. Then it became clear to me. Um, Americophobia is based. Thanks, Kath. Aren't you in America, Kath? Okay. Um, but it became very clear to me, I don't know, like 2 or 3 pages in, that what she meant was like the woman who gives birth and then the other mother. So like she refers to the one who hasn't given birth as the co-parent. To me, that's very strange because the whole essay she's talking about validating the family unit. But I guess the way she sees it is that validating the family unit doesn't necessarily mean both saying that both of the women are mothers specifically. But I just thought like honestly to me I was like that's a little bit offensive to be like because that woman didn't give birth she's not the mother. But like I guess that's just in this time period. I mean like consider the stuff she's talking about, the way she's talking about it, it's obviously very outdated. Um but I love that. I love getting a snippet of what was happening. I talked to um I've talked to a lesbian family law lawyer from Georgia one time, and that was 4 years ago. Um, about like the contemporary like situation for women like building a family and like divorcing and like how scared like messy and complicated that is. Um, and so from that one conversation comparing it to this, it's very clear. Can we can do the most based country poll. Okay, what should we? Okay, I will do a poll in the live chat, but you need to name like 4 countries for me to do the poll about. Okay, how many things can I put in a poll? Yeah, I can put 4 things in a poll. Okay, so tell me which countries to put. Okay, I'm too old to know what based means. It just means cool, like that's cool, or like that's rad or something. So far, we got Sweden. Okay. Yeah, so I just thought that was interesting. Um, because she's obviously very focused on validating the family. But I guess she sees the co-parent as just as integral, whether they're called a mother or not a mother. Sweden, Lithuania is based. All right. Wait, what's the country that has free Wi-Fi? Is that Romania? No, I know New Zealand. It's basically as bad as Canada over there, right? Oh my god, yes, the feminists in Mexico are fucking badass, man. Okay, also the feminists. Okay, I'm putting the poll up because the feminists in Korea are also badass. Okay. Okay, so when this poll is done, if I haven't included as many countries as necessary, we'll do a second poll. Okay. The Free Republic of Kyrgyzstan. Isn't that one of the countries that has like isn't that the country that has the highest rates of bridal kidnapping? Do you guys know about this shit? Um oh, Aqua, thanks. This is like Eurovision. Would you vote for your own country? Oh yeah, Imoja is in Kenya. Yeah. Perf Island is cool. I don't know. Is Perf Island cool though? I feel like there's too much focus on Perf Island. Turf Island. I feel like I just kept repeating it. Um, because I just feel like I know the situation for lesbian feminists in France is like extremely, extremely, extremely fucking dire. Like I actually keep wanting to do a series of interviews about it, but then I need to like get my shit together with my French. Um, like in terms of me speaking French better. I just feel like there's so much focus on the UK that it's like actually kind of unproductive, is what I'm saying. Like, the feminists in Spain are getting their shit together and there's like, I don't know. Sometimes she ignores the results. Oh yeah, totally. I think the most I've done polls is in the fiction novels when I'm like, which male character do we want to be the murdered person? Which female character do we want to be like end up with the Oh, remember we did a poll one time of shipping which female character with the lesbian character? That was nice. For a while my Tumblr, the like title was just like perf cuz I don't know if you guys know, but it used to be like common knowledge that perf was penis exclusionary radical feminist. Bird Kilby says the French rad femmes are very based. They are freaking badass. At the very least, you should all go follow Marguerite Stern. Marguerite Stern is like freaking amazing. She's been very cancelled. Um, Tallstone says I can't talk openly about my ex because of being on single parent benefits. No freedom, strong government control in New Zealand. That's really unfortunate. Um, Aqua says I chose Turf Island because they have the best chance of outsourcing turfism as a Western power, if that makes sense. Yes, it does. Yeah, the women in France are constantly physically assaulted. Like, no offense to the women in the UK, but there has been like 3 times that women have been physically assaulted by TRAs in the UK, and obviously that's bad, and obviously I'm not okay with that, obviously. But in France, it seems to happen like on a fucking weekly basis, and nobody's talking about it. Um, the 4-H movement. It's like no husbands, no makeup, no children, no sex, I think. Yeah, the 4-H movement, I'm pretty sure. Oh, thanks, Lisa. I'm really glad or very flattered that you and Michelle, not Michelle, you're Lisa Michelle, that you and Radical Ramblings show up so often. Um, Yeah, France also, like, in general, it has, like, I don't know how to describe it, like a machismo issue or something. France is very fucked. Um, in terms of rape laws and like domestic violence stuff, like France is very fucked up and the feminists there are quite mad, like badass. Okay. Okay, let's talk about the book. I mean the essay. Okay. So yeah, I was surprised by her I was surprised by her not calling all of them mothers when she literally has things where she's like, what counts as a mother? Okay. Something the one criticism I have of this essay, like most of it to me was like pretty specific. Like this is a specific problem that a lesbian family might have, and that is good because as we know, some of the essays in this book are so fucking vague. It's like, what are you talking about? Like it's very philosophical rather than like applicable. Um, this essay, I did kind of find that when she used the word oppression, because obviously I know what she means generally, but I think about a straight therapist who has a lesbian family client. They get this book, like, I'm going to learn some stuff about lesbians, being a therapist for lesbians, blah, blah, blah. She mentions in this essay many, many times lesbophobic oppression affects the mothers, and through that, it affects the children. Lesbophobic oppression affects the children in the outside world, and this affects the system within the family. She mentions this many times, but to me, it's just a bit vague. What specifically, like, she didn't specifically say, like, this lesbophobic oppression that happens to this kid, they're gonna come home and do something about that, which I didn't like. Ugh, Aquamarine, don't talk to me about Jermaine Greer. Who knows what happened with her? She's almost as disappointing as more disappointing than Margaret Atwood and whoever else recently has like. The fossil person, you're so funny. Okay. No, yeah. Um. Okay. I found it interesting too when she brought up if lesbians want to have kids, usually both of the women want to be the childbearer. And I was like, is that the case? Um I guess my perspective is quite skewed because most of the lesbians I know are like lesbian separatists or like radical feminist lesbians, and as a result, many of them are antinatalists, right? And also, most of my friends, like lesbian feminist friends, I've met because we were like in fucking dysphoria support groups and detransition support groups and shit. So obviously, most of us, like, I don't fucking want to have a child. That sounds like, regardless of like the actually having the child, like the process of bearing a child and birthing a child to me sounds like very upsetting and horrific. No offense to the women who've done that and whatever. I just mean, like, for me personally, that's quite scary. Um yeah, exactly, Kaz. So I guess this is a product of its time, or a product of who is accessing her services. Because okay, also we didn't. Oh fuck! Sorry, I forgot. We're supposed to start the stream with reading about who is this author. I'm pretty sure Sally Crawford is a therapist in Northampton, Massachusetts. If you don't know, Northampton, Massachusetts, I think has the largest lesbian population per capita in the U.S., or at least it did at some point. It is where Smith College is. Smith College, the notorious women's college full of fucking lesbians. Up until recently, I'm sure there's still lots of lesbians there. But let's like look at her little bio thing. One sec here. Hmm. Why isn't the video here? Okay. I guess I'll just look at the back of the book. Oh no. Oh, I must be confusing her with someone else. Well, never mind then. She's an outpatient therapist at Franklin County Mental Health Center in Greenfield, Massachusetts. Where the fuck is Greenfield, Massachusetts, though? Because like she keeps bringing up that all these women are closeted. Maybe the women from Northampton were going to Greenfield, Massachusetts for their therapy. No, yeah, dude. It's like 15 kilometers or something from Northampton. Okay, yeah. So my statement stands, even though she's not actually from that city. Um, Interesting. Tossstone says all the lesbians I know have had sons. Very interesting. Um, I don't know enough lesbian moms to have noticed a trend in any of that. Kaz says, I think that ties into the assumption that women naturally want to be mothers and that our innate role is motherhood. Yeah. So I'm just thinking is like, okay, so she's seeing lesbian mothers who she said are between the ages of 25 to 45. And she's seeing them in, let's say, because she wrote this essay, before the book was published, let's say she's seeing all these patients in 1985. That means the women she's seeing grew up between 1965 and 1945 that they were born, right? So the messages they got about motherhood, womanhood, the family, this is very, very different than what we're getting now, right? So I think it's very true what you're saying here. This assumption that women are naturally supposed to be mothers and it's in our innate role to be mothers. I think that's still a thing, obviously, which is why being like antinatalist is like very controversial. But I think it's definitely less strong now in the Western world. This like even if you hear it directly from your parents, I think the general narrative for what a woman can be, there is now like variety in that, whether it's like completely acceptable or not. Um, Greenfield is close to NoHo. NoHo. Okay, so the poll, I'm gonna say the poll is concluded. Um, Turf Island won. If you guys want me to do another poll, drop the names in there and we'll do another one. Okay. A possible person, like, not to be to gross you out, but if you do want kids and artificial insemination is expensive, I'm not even going to address the ethics and the complex situation in getting the sperm in the first place. But like doing the turkey baster thing works for a lot of lesbians. Like I've talked to a lot of lesbians, so that's how they did it. Um, I would say like try that a few times before you consider IVF. Okay. Depending on where you live, the legality of that is quite complex. Like in some places, it's technically illegal to have kids that way. Um, and then custody becomes very, very complicated. Also, the legality of acquiring the sperm can also be very complicated. So I'm not telling you like what to do, but I'm just saying like if you get to the point where you're actually seriously considering IVF, I would say to try that first at least once. Okay. Depending on where you live, maybe it's a very bad idea. Who knows? Okay. My god, Mad Adam, is that what it's called? I've never heard of this before. I'm technically part of the voluntary human extinction movement. What is that, man? You want to do a poll for the least based country now? Okay, let's do all the really woke countries. Are you ready? Hello, corner. Okay, you can now vote on your least based country. I tried to think of woke countries that have lots of bullshit. I don't know if Germany's as woke as the other ones, but I thought about putting down Portugal, and even though they're super woke, people don't really keep track of that. So I thought you guys wouldn't have enough information about Portugal to vote on that shit. Um, what is this book? Is this on my to read list already? It's very possible. Let us see what is this book. I do want to read about matriarchies. You know, like I like to switch between history and theory. I think I have The Goddess and Her Heroes on my to read list. But thank you for bringing it up. This probably bring it to the forefront of the list. Okay. Um. Tostone says the age gap between my sons is 13 years, so very different times. It is more difficult now. More pressure with gender bullshit. Thank you for sharing, Tostones. Lisa says when the also Lisa, I appreciate you bringing me back to the topic. Lisa says when the essay was talking about adopting a baby that's not from your own race, I was thinking that is an even more hot button issue now than it was then. Yeah, I think so too. Um, very much. And like my opinions on like um donor assisted reproduction, surrogacy, adoption, I feel like they're quite preliminary. Like I have thoughts, but I feel like I haven't delved into the topic super deeply to have like super well reasoned thoughts. Um but yeah, the I do think the way she discussed the race and culture was interesting. I'm glad she brought it up. Um Honestly, like I feel like I don't have a ton of opinions about this essay because I don't really know a lot about these topics. This question that she asks, yes, Kaz. Fucking on point. Kaz says it's harder to help ethnic kids understand their backgrounds and culture when you aren't part of that culture yourself, and it doesn't help when you have the I don't see color folks. Yeah. I'm trying to remember. It's been so many years. I went to music camp. No, I don't remember enough of the details to tell about this. But I do know I have met adopted children who were oh, I remember about this. Okay. I went to this other music camp and there was Suki, how long have you been here? Ugh, she's scratching the door. 1 second. Come say hi before you go. Don't scratch me. Squeaky, say hello. Okay. But you guys remember in one of the past essays, I think it was two essays ago, where they were talking about the difference it was the interracial relationship essay. The author brings up that language is not culture. Language is not a substitute for culture. And when some of the kids I knew who were like adopted by white parents, but they were like of a different ethnicity, usually one of the things their parents would do is to put them in language classes. So I knew these Chinese kids who were adopted by white parents, they put them in Mandarin, and they also put them into some kind of, I don't remember what it was, but it was some kind of like Chinese community center youth group or something. And honestly, I feel like it's a very complex topic. Like I don't have a lot of things to say about it because it's so complicated. On one hand, I think that might actually be very, very alienating, like from their own culture, that they are like an outsider being put into it. I mean, I don't know. Komutashi says specifically looking for a kid ethnically different from yourself is fucked up. Yeah, it's okay, Julia. You guys can always talk about whatever you want. Um, yeah, Squeaky is like, well, she's named Squeaky because you heard the noises she makes. Everything's like, okay. So, okay, she asks this question. Hannah says, what if the whole family took language classes and they all went to the community center? Would that be better? Yeah, I think so. I just imagine like I went to high school with a lot of kids from Hong Kong who like they moved to Toronto like at the beginning of freshman year to live in like a homestay like with another family to like go to school in Canada. And when they got here, they spoke like perfect, flawless English. And it was like you didn't even know they were like newly immigrated unless you asked them, right? Or unless they talked about it. And I tried to imagine like, you know, I've heard this type of story multiple times when it comes to Chinese girls. So the Chinese baby girls are adopted by people in the Western world. And then at some point, the Chinese woman goes to China to try to like reconnect with her culture or something. And that even if she already speaks Chinese, that it's like I'm just saying like I think that's good, but I feel like there is like such like culture is such a huge thing that it's kind of impossible to like synthetically create a cultural support system that is not from your family. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what I think I'm trying to say. Um because I also my neighbor and my the first household I can remember living in when I was a kid, because we moved a lot when I was really young. Um the whole family was Caribbean, but the one daughter, she was like white. She was like blonde hair, blue eyed, white skinned. And I literally remember like being like in the park or the grocery store or something with them. We hung out a lot. They babysat me and my sister a lot. Like not the kids, but the moms. We hung out with the kids a lot. And I remember like hanging out with them and literally like in the grocery store, like people like pointing at the mother. Like one time the white daughter, she was like crying and stuff like in the grocery store. And people tried to like separate her daughter from her because they were like, that's not your kid because she's white. And it was like a thing where they each, she and the dad each had like a recessive, like one grandparent who was white or something. So it worked out that way. But like, I just remember like how stressful it was for her. Like, and I was really young. I was like 6 or 7. I just remember how stressful it was for her that her, like, people looked at their family and assumed they weren't a family and stuff. So I'm not coming down on one side or the other of the whole situation, but I just think it's like a very, very complicated situation. And so basically I agree with what the author is saying is that you need to have um like a very nuanced, deep thought process about this before you do it. Oh, Gay is here, another lesbian mother. um I mean, Gay, I know you haven't been a mother for like, a super long time, but have you ever accessed any kind of like, well, actually, no, this is a stupid question to ask now because everything is woke and bullshit. But do you think you would ever intentionally go and look for like a lesbian mother support group or like something like that? As I remember seeing them existing when I was younger. I haven't seen them exist in Toronto. Well, definitely since COVID, but probably even before that they disappeared. Um, why is everybody being like, yeah, Cass? What did Cass say? Yeah, Bird Killed Me is mentioning how traumatic it is to be adopted. Very, very much agree. one of my best friends is an adoptee, and she's almost 60 years old now, and she is constantly, like, noticing new things or having new realizations from the fact that she's adopted, and obviously this is, like, old news for her at this point in her life, you know? Um, yes, Kaz. I'm with you, Kaz. Kaz says, "I definitely don't think adopting a child of a different race is a bad thing, but I think a lot of research needs to go into it." Very, very much agree. Um, yeah. Well, I know one of the big, contentious things in Canada is, like, in general, people who adopt in Canada have some amount of money, like, they're not, like, super low class, and so in general, at least as far as I've understood it, maybe this information is outdated, they're adopting internationally, but actually, Canada has, like, a fuck ton of kids who are in the foster care system with, like, they're never going to end up with their parents again. Again, this is, like, a very complex subject. Because I don't I personally I don't know where the line should be with this mother can never be a fit mother ever again. Like, I don't know where that line should be or who is drawing that line or what does that mean for the child in the future. But generally, one of the things I've heard about in Canada is that people are critical of people who have the money and the ability to adopt going outside the country. Meanwhile, all the foster kids in Canada sit in foster care. Yes, then the indigenous, I'm not even going to talk about that topic. It deserves its own stream. But we'll mention Tossstones. I'll mention your comment. The theft of indigenous children to be raised by white families to make them more white still happens. Yes, exactly. Um, it's a very complicated situation. Um, yeah. Although I did go to university with some indigenous kids who they didn't end up getting adopted by white families, but they grew up in foster systems with white families. But I think it was because of where they were geographically. I'm not saying that the situation was like perfect and I support everything. I'm just saying for these specific two women I'm talking about, who were one of them was Inuit and the other one was Cree, and they were raised by white foster families. But because of where they lived, they went to like the powwows. They learned their native languages. Like, even though the family couldn't, like, synthetically create their culture for them, they were, like, geographically in the area of their culture. So they could, like, engage in the culture separate from with their foster parents. Um, and, like, I don't know, that's the only information I have, like, personal, anecdotal information I have, like, about that situation in Canada. Everything else I know is, like, statistics and stuff. Um, but to me, that seems like when it comes to this issue of like cross-cultural adoption or parenting, to have your kid close to the actual culture instead of trying to synthetically create it yourself, I think is probably better. Um, Maple says if I were to have kids, I would foster to adopt. Yeah, me too. I would definitely foster to adopt. I think that's the only way I would feel comfortable ever getting um, introducing a child into my life. Okay, what time is it? Holy shit, it's already 6. Yeah. Sorry, 1 second. It's unclear whether or not I'm working tomorrow morning, and if I am, what time. If I'm working, like, at the crack of dawn tomorrow, I need to go, like, in the next 30 minutes, and I need to, like, get in bed and go to sleep soon. Um, Okay. Oh wait, no, I didn't even text my boss. I texted. Okay, sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay. Uh. Okay. Sorry. All right. Oh, Frau's going. Is she going? Should Benji go to bed? Let's do the poll. Okay, so who's the least? Okay, but I shouldn't have put America in it because everybody's gonna vote for fucking America, even the Americans. Like, who voted for Canada? The Canadians. You guys, we're not supposed to vote for our own countries. This is like Eurovision. Okay, whatever. We'll end the poll. All right. Oh, I hope your headache gets better, Michelle. Oh, is Julia also going? Lisa, I voted Canada. Thanks, Lisa. Okay. Um, yeah, let's just scan through this a bit. Okay, so she asked this question, and I think it's a very interesting question because I think when she asked it, it would have a different answer than now. Here's this. Okay. Am I hurting my children, especially when they have problems, as all kids do sometimes or others, by being a lesbian parent? I think this is an interesting question because I think the effect that society will have on your child as a lesbian parent now versus in 1985 is radically different. I mean, leave Toss Stones even mentioned this. Um, the difference in her children are 13 years apart, and the difference in the way they're treated, right? And the struggles she has with them specifically are different. Like, she talks in this essay specifically a lot about invisibility, and she brings up what does she call it? Pseudo sophistication that these kids have at a young age because they've learned from a very young age to lie about who are their parents or to like mislead or like have lies of omission about who are their parents, right? So those were like the issues in 1987, right? Like having to pretend basically that you didn't have two moms and hiding that. And then if it did come out, obviously facing homophobia over who your parents are, right? But now, I mean, at least I think about in Canada and America, right? If you were to have lesbian parents, I think that now you will be much closer to being sucked into the queer cult bullshit, right? Like the lesbian moms I know, I mean, obviously because I know them and I hang out with them, they're radical feminists. Like, I don't have that much time to hang out with people, so I'm very picky. Okay. And because, especially if they're divorced and one of the mothers is woke and the other one isn't, or something, or if even if they're together but their co-parent is woke. Like a lot of the times, at least the lesbians that I know, the like the father or sperm donor or whoever you would like to contextualize it is like in the picture and sometimes that guy is woke even if the mothers are not woke. So I think that is like a huge obstacle that you have to consider when you're I just think the question is interesting because the answer now versus then is like radically different. It's, you know, Averkillian says, I wish I had two rad fem moms. Sounds great. Yeah, I know, right? um, Tossstone says, extended families are very underrated. The nuclear family is more expected. Yeah. Honestly, I don't have, I haven't done a ton of, I haven't done a ton of research on the matrilineal societies or cultures or matriarchal societies and cultures. But in general, it's my understanding that they were much more community based when it came to child rearing because it's like a fuck ton of work to be a mother. And I totally agree with you, Tossstones, that the extended family is much more is very underrated. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. The lesbian families that I know, the dads, like, are in the picture to differing degrees, but they're called co-parents, and it definitely relieves some of the pressure from the mothers that they have, like, one more person in the picture. Gay says, "I don't know why so many lesbians have bought into queer culture." Honestly, I feel like a lot of them haven't really thought it through that much. I feel like at first blush, a lot of the queer crap, it feels so easy to associate with it because of your internalized lesbophobia, and so they hear it and they internalize it, and then they don't really do much soul searching on it after that point. I mean, that's, like, my general thoughts on it. Yeah, Maple is talking about, how everybody's living very far away from each other, um, and how it's, like, created distance between within the extended family bonds. Yeah. Oh, Aqua, it's already happening. There's already Have you seen these people on TikTok who are, like, polyamorous couples of, like, 4 people? Well, not a couple then, but whatever, you know what I'm saying? Of, like, 4 people who are raising a kid with, like, no pronouns, and its baby is, like, fucking 1 years old and doesn't even have pronouns, and it's, like, insane. It's very disturbing. Yeah, don't get me started on the babies. Okay. Like, when she brings up the home studies, can you imagine being a lesbian who's trying to adopt and they come for a home study, and before they come for the home study, you need to make it appear that you live alone and tell your wife or partner or whatever to get the fuck out and, like, adopt the kid as if you are a single mother. Meanwhile, there's, like, literally a second mother in the situation. And imagine, like, in a foster situation, if, like, a year later after you moved into this house, the social worker is talking with the kid who is, like, 4 years old, and the kid now needs to have learned to lie and say they only have one mother. Like, yeah. I found it so interesting that she brought up, anyone who becomes a parent needs to be prepared to be a single parent. I mean, obviously, when you think about it, that makes sense, obviously. But it's so interesting because when I think about the potentiality of having, like, a child in my life, not necessarily like mine, but like fostering a child or something, I always think I can only do that when I have a partner because it's like so much work, so much energy and financial commitment that I don't think I could, like, realistically expect to do that myself. But then what she says is true. And I think a lot of people think of it that way, right? Like, oh, when I have a partner, when I have money, that's when I'll have children, right? But if you think about it realistically, like, partner could get hit by a bus and then that financial and that energy from that person is gone. Um, yeah, Maple, you're funny. Um, but also Maple says, "How can people think that a severe degree of homophobia has been completely fixed in just one generation?" Yeah, it's very stupid. So what she brings up is very reminiscent of all of the essays we've read in this book so far about interracial relationships and, like, cross-cultural boundaries when it comes to lesbians, um, or cross-cultural connections between lesbians. So she's basically saying, if you're a lesbian mom, you can get support for being a mother most of the time from heterosexuals. And if you're a lesbian mother, you can get your support most of the time for being a lesbian from other lesbians. But to get both in the same place is extremely rare. And so it becomes this like fragmented personhood, right? That if you're with these people, you're a lesbian. If you're with these people, you're a mother, and you're never both at the same time in a communal, I mean, in a social setting. This is exactly what has been brought up multiple times in the interracial and race discussion essays, that when you're in a lesbian space, a lot of the time you're seen only as a lesbian and not as a lesbian of your ethnicity. And if you're in a space with people of your culture, you're seen as a person of that culture, but not a person of that culture who is a lesbian. So it's like this fragmented sense of identity. Um, Toston says, not having the partner dynamic, which is sometimes negative, is avoided when raising children on your own. True. Yeah. That's like very rad, Tostones, that you just like that you're like a single mom, like you just decided to have kids. Like that's pretty cool. I don't think I could do that. I haven't read that article, Kaz. That's interesting, but holy shit, what keeps happening to the time? I keep looking at the clock and like 10 minutes have passed. Um Honestly, reading this essay, it like cemented so many of my subconscious thoughts, or well, not thoughts, my subconscious feelings about what it would be like to be a lesbian mother, like historically. And also, um, in reading the Lillian Fitterman's The Gay Revolution, The Story of the Struggle, she talks about like basically how gay people got all the gay rights they or all the rights, a lot of the rights, the important milestone rights they got in the US. And so there's like a whole chapter that talks about parents' rights. And that was my first like kind of reality of like this is what they had to deal with. I mean, as many of you will know, one of the big reasons that lesbians wouldn't divorce their husbands was because they were like sure, or was it very high risk that their husband could just say, "Oh, she's a lesbian," and get full custody and that's it, right? So here she brings up the extended family situation. So, if you're not out to your parents, but you have children, do you go and visit the family, just the mother who's related to that immediate family and the children without the other partner? Or if you do both go as partners and the family is, homophobic and they make you stay in separate rooms, like what do the kids think of that? That kind of thing, right? What messages they're sending the kids. Um I don't know. I'm very glad she brought up these specific things. I'm sure it was relevant then, but like as me looking at this like as a piece of history, it's very, very interesting. Um, Lesbians lost a ton of their kids as gay. Yes, yeah, I'm aware of this. Yeah, and the extended family. So they talk in the essay, not they. The author mentions sorry, I think I need to end the stream soon. Oh yeah. So the author mentions kind of like so coming out to your parents, that's like a big milestone, right? And they'll have either negative or positive reactions, and then that will like develop or evolve, right? And she mentions the milestones that indicate you're starting a family, marriage, pregnancy, traditionally, even if you have these things as lesbians, because this is obviously written, before gay marriage was a thing in the US. So even if you did like a civil partnership type thing privately, and even if you get pregnant or get a kid in some way, how's your family going to react to this? Are they going to see this as like a negative or a positive? And how will it evolve from there? Um, It's just so interesting to me because, like, especially with my family history, it basically was decided at some point in my childhood that my extended family was so harmful to me and my sister and our family, like, as a unit, that we should have no contact with them. And so to me, it's like, it's interesting to even take any of these risks. Like, having a kid in the first place, okay, but to take the risks of, like, involving extended family, like, given how horrible the outcomes could be. Like, in she also mentions, like, if a woman has a child and she's a lesbian, especially in the 80s, this is definitely grounds for grandparents to try to get custody of the child, right? So the risks are very high about involving extended family. Um, but as is mentioned, this is very fucking important. Yeah, my dad is like very, very much the black sheep of his family. My mom is like, I mean, her generation doesn't really have any many kids in it. Her generation only has like maybe 6 people in it. And they're all very spread out. So I don't really get the sense she's like the black sheep, but she definitely doesn't like have huge, strong family bonds with them or anything. Okay, I'm just gonna skip to the last page because I'm like very tired. All right. So the last section is about how therapists can support lesbians. And honestly, it's pretty repetitive at this point. The conclusion for most of these essays is basically telling the therapist you need to learn more about this topic if you want to like give your clients real support. Oh, let's read the last paragraph. Finally, in the midst of this critical awareness, it is imperative for lesbians and those who wish to support them to understand that being a lesbian parent is as unique in its pains and assets as being a lesbian. There is no satisfying trade off in life for the integrity inherent in being oneself and the power and strength inherent in achieving this in the face of these odds. Yeah, so our conclusion is kind of like we went all over the place in this essay. We talked about a lot of different specific settings, situations, but yeah, I'm stubborn. Remember all the times where we're like 2 hours into a stream and I'm like, I'm tired, I need to go to sleep, and then like 6 hours, no, well, like 4 hours later, we're like in a 6 hour stream, and I'm like, oh yeah, wasn't nice, didn't I say that like 3 hours ago? Um, well, thank you, Gay. Gay says therapists can support lesbians by not suggesting they are actually men. That's something else too. Okay, I said I was going to be done, but let's talk about this very briefly. So, you guys know Carol, who's been on my channel. Obviously, Gay knows Carol. Oh. Um, she's a mother. She has a really great essay on fourth wave now. Talking about not only how her transition affected her wife, but how it affected her son. And she's not the only one that I know. I've known a couple of different detransitioners, especially when they're young. When they transition young and then they are detransitioning in their early 20s, they're like, do you know how hard it is to explain to a kid this kind of stuff and for them to like actually get it, like little kids? Or like, do you know how much like it fucks with their heads for them to understand that you've been lying with them for like a long time, lying to them for a long time and stuff like this? And to me, this comes back to an issue that I talked about in the last essay, the coming out to mom essay. Um, I actually read a book recently where, like, wait, give me a second. Yeah, this guy's family is like a bunch of criminals, and also someone in his family just died, and his boyfriend gets like mad that he's not like introducing him to the family as a boyfriend, and it's like to the point of like an ultimatum, like the relationship is going to end. And I'm like, this is obviously like a fictional book that I read, but to me it's like this insane thing of like coming out is like it's like a thing onto itself that is worth it for the sake of itself, regardless of its impact. Yeah, it's ridiculous, Maple. Regardless of its impact or like the context of the situation or anything like that. So I see the same thing with this, like telling lesbians that they're men by therapists. It's like, regardless of the impact on this person's quality, I mean, obviously, when it comes to the actual person, the individual themselves, obviously, I've talked about this for like fucking months and months and years. Um, well, like 6 years now. Um, it obviously the therapist is not considering, what effect will this have on their health? What effect will this have on their mental health? What effect will this have on their sense of self? What effect will this have on their confidence? What effect will this have on their anxiety? No, nothing, right? So obviously, if the therapist can't even consider that on behalf of the actual client, they're definitely not considering that when it comes to the partner and the kids. And I never really thought about it before. It's not even repression, little possible person. It's about like, because possible person says maybe it's just me, but a little repression isn't always a bad thing. It's not that. It's self-preservation. It's like, think before you jump. It's that fucking basic. Anyway, just like you talk to these older lesbians who were like, I was so strategic. I waited until I had like my own place to live and my own credit card and my own income, and then I came out to my parents because I thought they were gonna kick me out, so I needed to be sure. Right? This is the same thing. Like the therapist, um yeah. So if you think about like a person, a lesbian, oh no, this is what I'm gonna say. So the whole concept of like the trans widow, how among lesbians, like we don't even have a specific term for it because it's like so fucking like ubiquitous. And I think also a part of it is that like it's not happening to lesbians in the same way that it's happening to straight women generally. I think in lesbians, a lot of the time when their partner transitions, it's not like they've been with their partner for like 15 years and suddenly their partner is like, "Oh yeah, I've been hiding my fetish from you" or something. I feel like a lot of the times with lesbians, the relationships are much younger when it happens. Not always, but I think a lot of the time. Anyway, there's a couple different reasons why it's not seen in the same context. Obviously, another reason is that lesbian relationships are not seen as having as much merit as a straight relationship. So when a father leaves a straight relationship to, you know, fuck off and abandon his family, which honestly is probably good riddance because if he stays around, we can expect the behavior of someone like Stefankny. Um, this is seen as like a major loss to the family. Whereas when a lesbian in a situation with lesbians, if one of the lesbians transitions and fucks off, it's seen as like, well, they weren't really like a real family in the beginning, so right? But think about for children. Think about what it's like for a child to have a parent who transitions. Think about how many children, especially of lesbian parents, you know, especially depending on where you are, had to come to terms with the fact their parents are different. They probably have friends who their parents won't let them come over to their house because they have two moms or whatever, this kind of thing. They had to come to terms with the fact that their parents were different. And then one of their parents transitions and suddenly they have a straight family. Like think about the mind fuck that is for a child, right? Um and then from there, think about how that child's relationship with that parent is going to change. And from that, how do you think the parent's self-esteem and sense of self and confidence and stuff like this is going to change? Like, do you think the therapist is thinking that through when they're telling the lesbian mom, like, oh yeah, for sure you're trans, just like try the testosterone a little bit. As for Carol's situation, just try it out, just try the testosterone. Um anyway. Okay. We've talked about the book. 2 hours of streaming today, I think, is pretty good. So maybe a stream tomorrow. This is the stream that was technically scheduled for tomorrow. But I may or may not be working tomorrow morning, in which case there will be no stream, obviously. Um, Matt Adams says, I feel like the trans ideology put a lot of emphasis on not thinking about anyone but yourself and your transition. And it's like so stupid too, because it's not even thinking about yourself like in a holistic view of like your interactions with the outside world, your relationship with yourself, like your relationship with your partner. It's not even about you like in a holistic way. It's about you like as if you're in a fucking vacuum. It's so strange. Like coming out or starting medical transition, none of these things should be based upon like safety or financial viability or anything like this. They should only be based on like that's how you are on the inside, nothing else. um Kaz says it's about themselves in a narcissistic way. Honestly, I feel like a lot of people are being conditioned into like narcissistic thought patterns by the trans crap. It's very fucked up. Um, at least for the fetishists, says Kaz. Yeah, for sure. That they're not being socialized into it. They brought it themselves. All right. Okay, I'm gonna sign off for tonight. So I will probably, actually no, I have no idea. I will see you tomorrow or not see you tomorrow, but for sure we will see each other on Wednesday. As always, my streams are scheduled ahead of time. Feel free to set the notification thing to press the bell, or if you would like, set an alarm on your phone for that time, whatever it is in your time zone, and then just go to YouTube if your YouTube notifications are being uncooperative. Thank you so much for coming today, Hannah. It's been great that you stuck around the whole time. Most newcomers don't stick around the whole time. Thank you to Lisa, Kaz, Mad Adam, Aqua, Maple, Julia, Gay, Komotashio, Toss Stones, A Bird Killed Me, Hostel Person. Did I forget someone? I forgot someone. Michelle and Frau. And all the guys. All right. Okay. Night, sisters. Bye. Oh, wait. I haven't done this in so long. Let's get Momo to say goodbye. Momo, say goodbye. She's falling asleep. I don't think she's going to purr for you guys today. She's looking at the live chat. Guys are communicating. Okay. Good night, guys. Oh, wait. Where's my mouse? Okay. Night.